I've always felt that when something is about to be good or could be good, that it's always me who blows it up, right? I don't know if I'm probably not the only one who feels this way, but I feel like self sabotage is something just built into my DNA, into my system. I don't really know why. And I'm mostly talking more about relationships, sometimes friendships, maybe more romantic, just because, I also have a part of my life that's a business part. And I am extremely cold, logical, and it's why it's done, very well, all things considered, right? I'm very satisfied with where it's at, satisfied not being like, I'm done, I'm not going to do anything else. But it's, there's just a lot of opportunity and things are going really well there. And I've reflected a lot on why that part of my life is, all things considered, really, really good. And the other parts of my life, or the other part of my life there, if you just want to put into those two categories, is pretty abysmal. And it continues to be. And I really have kind of put it down the line of just one, I have no emotional attachment. I mean, to some degree I do, but relatively little emotional attachment to it. And I think strictly through what is logically the best move here, what is the most optimal move. Think of it like, game of chess. You could be losing, but you run it through a smart enough chess engine. There's always a best move you can make. There's a second best move, assuming you have a lot of moves, dot, 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 second worst and worst move. There's a ranked order for your moves. And, world of business is a little bit more like a game of poker where you don't have all the information on the table. But if you play a good hand again and again and again, then your total sum is going to be you're successful. But when it comes to relationships, sometimes friend wise, but then, also romantic, I've never really had great separation there. And I've also, had difficulty separating it just because I've kind of felt like that's the part of my life where I don't want to be reserved and it could be great to be yourself, right? But sometimes it also feels like I'm on this edge of, I should just be myself because if I'm going to find a partner, I only need to find one, right? That's ideally just one. And if I'm more so blatantly myself in the beginning and throughout, then eventually it's gonna be a lot of no's, it's gonna be a lot of failing. But like if you only have to get something like right once, let's say that there's 100 lottery tickets and you only need to scratch one and to win the grand prize, whatever. Expected value in lottery tickets is negative, but beyond the point. Um, but I've also sometimes felt as if that, it's self sabotage on my end, in that, there was a period of my life where, things were going on paper a little bit better in that department. And that was because I completely determined everything I was doing before I thought through it as, logically as I could. I was very reserved and the problem was it didn't show that accurate of a representation of who I was. And that, of course, is going to lead to a pretty suboptimal pairing, right? Not to use nerd language, but it's true. If you only need to get it right once, then why would you do that? But the thing that was always disappointing to me is while on paper, those relationships or whatever, it seemed like it was working well on paper. I looked like a good fit. Um, they would always blow up in some way or fall apart. It was never a bad blow up. Never like that, but it would always fall apart. And I would kind of go back on, to reflect back on it. And I always found that, I could cross out, well, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, it wasn't this. And every single time, the only thing left was me. Right. So that was kind of depressing. And it was something where even with the most curated version of myself, I was still failing. And it came to the point of me. And I was like, okay, well, even if the most curated version of myself, like, doesn't work, well, then I should just be myself so that, you have the best optimal pairing. But, almost 24. I'm going to be 24 in a couple months. Jesus. That's bad. And I know that there's people always say, "Oh, you're so young, well, it'll work out." It's probably the most frustrating thing I've ever heard, and I completely understand where it's coming from. Like it'll work out, it'll all work out, it'll just happen. It might not just happen. Like very reasonably, it might just not happen. There's no predetermined law of physics that says it will happen. And I've always felt that, you always hear from the most stable relationship, happy people in that department. You always get that advice. And I understand where they're coming from because they're potentially and maybe probably right, but it's not very helpful. and it's very frustrating. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Super useful for me to hear. But, I almost sometimes have this battle of like, how much do I actually want to show like be myself, even when it is clearly going to, well, here's the debate. And part of me is always, and from what I've learned is like, that is always the reason why I fail. If you go back and you look through it, it's like, it always, like when I cross things off, it always came back to me, even when I was better. And part of me is like, okay, well, do I just refine that part even more? Or is it something where I completely just allow myself to be myself and then, be okay with the much larger possibility that it doesn't work out, that I don't find a match. That part doesn't work, right? It's something where I don't know. It's like as soon as I didn't show any restraint, by restraint, I don't mean like I'm some crazy person, but I would just be, a little weird or just talk about the things I liked quite a bit or just not, I don't know. I don't even know. Like I can't even say why. And that's part of why it's hard. So part of the battle is like, do I want to just, take the risk of just like, okay, well, I don't have infinite time. Like if I had infinite time, then this would be no doubt the best thing to do, where it's like, if you're 100% yourself in theory, right, in theory, like you find someone who appreciates all those components. And I've always believed that like, while I'm not a fit for most people, I would be a really, 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 really good fit for, the right person. Um, but I have no idea how small that pool is. And I don't have a great sample size of past information, but it's bad. It's dreadful. It's awful. It's just really, it doesn't, I don't have I don't want to jump to conclusions. And it would be very emotional, not logical to jump to conclusions here, but it's not as if it's not concerning. And I guess it's just kind of an open question for myself is like, at what point do I just have to kind of like, I don't know, have the Hollywood makeover of my personality, right? Not like to be like Hollywood, but you know what I mean? It's like the actors go in and they get all the makeup stuff done and they look good and then they're edited. Like, how much of that is important to even, get what I want here versus, can I just be myself? And I mean, I can be definitely kind of compulsive. Like I'll feel something, I'll think something, and I'll just say it, or I'll text it, or I'll do it, or I'll do something. I don't think it through, and they're never inherently bad things, right? I mean, when you tend to, put yourself out there a bit more, and even making this video, I just saw these other like philosophy app channels. They're doing pretty well, and I'm like, I would like to. This is less expensive than like a therapist, and most of the time with a therapist, you just sit there and talk anyways. So I'm like, two birds, one stone, maybe. But I've really had to think through of like, at what point when you narrow down and the problem is you, like, is that actually a problem, right? And if you deem it to be a problem, then you can fix it. But if you fix it, then you might actually have a bad pairing long term because inherently you can't change who you are long term in major ways. You can do it in small ways, but a lot of your tendencies, a lot of your traits are almost inherent to you. You're almost born from day one, spawned in the way your brain is formed. So you can't really change that long term in any major ways, or you're also going to have like a lot of emotional repression. You're going to be uncomfortable. Um, and does that make sense? Which doesn't sound like it does. Or do you take the serious risk of just, it might never work? And, the typical response to this is like, it just happens, and I hate it just happens. And maybe this is part of my logical business brain of like, no, if there's a problem, I need to try to solve it. I need to go in and do actionable steps towards what I want. And like in the business world, it's treating me really well because I can take actual, my dog